Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Travels with Dottie, with myself and Dottie. And we're going to talk to you today about surviving financially on the road. And this is about my personal experience. And it's keep in mind, I'm always a sample size of one. I am not an expert on any of these things. I do have an accounting background. Way back when, I have an accounting degree, so I have some knowledge, basic knowledge that has assisted me in understanding these issues. But before I get started and talk about the biggest thing, Social Security, I want to say I am going to stay away from politics on this, and I'm going to ask you not to jump in the comments talking about Doge or Trump or Biden or Obama or politicians and politics. It's a very big part of what's going on. And I'm going to talk about things that are going on in a very general sense, but I do not want this to be a forum for getting angry about politics. This isn't the place for it. This is for me to tell you what I have found out in my own personal research. So first, let's talk about Social Security, because I am highly dependent on my Social Security. I started taking Social Security at 62. I'm 65 now, and I'm very dependent on that. At 65, I started getting Medicare, right? So let's talk about what I think I know about Social Security. Social Security has a trust fund, and if you would like to look at a official report, the most current report on that trust fund, I'm going to put a link for that in the description. And basically, the dollars that you pay, if you're working and you're not retired, the dollars that you and your employer pay into Social Security go into the trust fund. And a lot of people mistakenly think, well, the government just takes that money. And in a technical sense, that's true, because that money goes into bonds, U.S. bonds, because that's the safest investment. And that is giving the money to the United States Treasury, right? And to say that, they took our money is the same. You could say the same thing about your bank. I put my paycheck, I gave it to the bank, and the bank took it and did stuff with it. They do stuff with it. You put your money in the bank, and they use that money as funding for the bank to do things like mortgages and car loans and stuff. It doesn't sit there in cash in a vault. That's not the way that it works. And it's not the way, and it's far safer to put money into U.S. bonds. And that's what happens with the funding. Now, the crisis this is not recent, this is not in the past year or two or even 10, is that the Social Security trust is running out of money. Why? Okay, because of people like me, baby boomers. If you look at the population of people that are receiving Social Security checks and how much money we're receiving versus the people in the workforce paying into Social Security, we're taking out more than they're putting in. What does that mean? If that continues, we're going to run out of money, right? We, meaning the Social Security system, is going to run not out of money, but short of money. So there are estimates that, if no one does anything, the benefits will need to be cut sometime between 2032 and 2035. It varies, and the cuts that are required, estimates vary from anywhere from 10 to 30%. Usually you're seeing 10 to 20%, but it could be up to 30% if no one does anything about the problem. Based on projections that experts do on how long people are going to live, the workforce, and just projecting out everything, that's when it's going to happen. So is that scary? Sure. But I've said to myself, okay, I'm going to pick the middle of the road. I'm going to pick 20%, and I'm going to say, I'm going to calculate how much I'm going to lose per month if they cut my Social Security check by 20%. Will it hurt? Yes. Will it be debilitating to me? Will I not be able to eat? No, I'll find a way to make it work. Now, I have confidence that when we get close to that, there'll be enough political pressure for that problem to be solved. And kind of the most obvious way is that right now people on their paychecks pay into Social Security only up to a certain amount of earnings. Then after that, they stop paying. When I was working, it was less than $100,000 a year, but now I think I'll put it in the description. I think it's like 200 some odd $1,000 a year. If you earn more than that, you stop paying in. If they either raise or better, just eliminate that cap. No matter how much money you make, you keep paying that tax. Problem solved. There's a resistance to doing that because people making that amount of money don't want to just give away more money than they have to. Would I want to give away more money than I have to if I were rich? Probably. Who knows, right? Or they can raise the tax rates. Or they can look at fraud, waste, and abuse, which is going on now. That's always a good thing. If there's waste happening or if there's fraud happening and we can stop it, that's great. So that's fear number one with Social Security, that, in 7 years' time, my Social Security will be cut by up to 30%. But, to me, I'm seeing 20% seems to be a good number. So that's a legitimate fear. And I find my best way of dealing with a fear like that is to say, okay, let's just assume it'll happen. Can I be okay? And my answer for me is, yeah, I can be okay. It'll be a hardship. I don't like it one bit. It would be a hardship. The other thing, changes being made to Social Security. The one that scares people the most is, hey, you can no longer do certain things over the phone. You have to do it online or in person. And I think that's flip-flop back and forth. I don't know where it stands right now. To me, it doesn't matter because I've never called Social Security. I do everything online. I don't do it I don't do it in person, and I don't do it by phone. I don't do it in person. Now, if for some reason I was forced to do it in person, we're nomads. We can travel close to where the office is, and I could decide to camp near there for a couple of days if that's what it takes. If there's long lines and I gotta wait, then for my monthly income that's important to me, I can wait for a long time and endure a lot of hardship for a few days. Chances are it'll be maybe a full day. Maybe it's 2 days. Even if it's 3 days, it's 3 days out of 365 for the year. I can survive that. And I'm saying, I don't think that's happening now. I know they put in the rule and they retracted it, and they're just trying to make sure that the people doing things with Social Security are on the up and up, and there's no one trying to steal from the system. I get that. That's fine. So if that's a fear that you have, and it's like you can't make it to a Social Security office, or you don't think you can, or you really super don't want to, my suggestion is that if you want to do it online and you don't know how to do it, you find a family member or very trusted friend that knows how to do it and have them help you. Don't let a stranger help you, because they may do it for nefarious purposes to get your information and be able to manipulate your information. Let's say some stranger helps you sign on with all your information to get in online to claim Social Security. Well, they have that information. They can redirect the deposit to their account instead of yours, and you'll never see them again. So only a trusted family member or very trusted friend helping you do online work. Don't let a stranger do it, even a recommended stranger. So I can't stress that enough. And that's only if you find they won't let you do it over the phone, and you have to either do it online or in person, and you cannot or are totally unwilling to do it in person. The safest thing, I think, is to doing it in person in a Social Security office. And because we're nomads, we can travel there. Like I said, we can travel there, camp near there while we're taking care of our business, even if it takes a few days and they're really long waits. Because I think waits are going to be long for services, Social Security, because they're cutting back on staff so much. And the people that are left have to figure out how to do the job with less people. And hopefully they'll be able to accomplish that. So um, that's, to me, in a nutshell, are the big issues with Social Security. And then, like I said, there are lots of scare rumors going around, and if you look at thumbnails, you will be terrified reading thumbnails like you'll never get your Social Security. They're going to take your Social Security. They're going to privatize your Social Security. Let's talk about that for a minute. Right now, Social Security is totally a public thing. It's legislated. That could change. They could introduce new legislation that, has a commercial broker take over the whole thing and it becomes privatized. And people are really afraid of that. Well, are there things that can go wrong with that? Sure. But would it necessarily be a terrible thing? I'm not so sure of that. It's not a big fear that I have personally. There could potentially be benefits to it. Wall Street firms, I'm sure, would want it because it would be the fees to do it, I'm sure, would be very, very lucrative for them. So that's why privatization, that's not a new concept either. Privatizing Social Security has been a political thing that's been talked about as long as I can remember, for decades. That's not new. Okay, so privatization, I don't hear any really serious moves toward that or any legislation written towards doing that. But some people say that's something that's going to come. Um, it doesn't scare me personally that much. Keep in mind, Rob is a sample size of one. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt. It's just this guy's opinion. All right. So Social Security. One thing that I would recommend that I do is when I signed up for it, I signed up for direct deposit. So I don't need to worry about changing my address or having an interruption to benefits if I should try to change my address or there's some kind of problem with my address. So no matter where I move, I'm not touching that part of my Social Security account that's sending those checks. As long as I have that bank account open, and trust me, I'm never going to close that bank account. I actually have a separate account just set up to take my Social Security checks. So I feel pretty good about that. So that's a really good idea. Instead of getting paper checks in the mail, which there could be a requirement down the road, if you change your address, you have to prove some stuff, and there's steps to go through. I want to avoid that. And people steal Social Security checks in the mail and fake endorse them and cash them, and you have to deal with that. That happens. So no paper checks for me. It's all electronic. It's worked like a charm so far. And if you do have basic computer skills, applying for Social Security online is really pretty user friendly. I mean, I've done a lot of online stuff for many decades, and they do a pretty good job of having a simple, pretty straightforward process. The same with applying for Medicare. I found out, how many months in advance of 65 can I do my application? I marked that date on a calendar, and I did it on that date. So I had my, red, white, and blue Medicare card like a couple months before it took effect. It was mailed to me. And so that also that site is under the Social Security umbrella, and it's similarly very easy to navigate and easy to apply. So I recommend you do that as well. Now, as far as choosing what options there are to go with Medicare, because like me, before I knew anything about Medicare, I thought, well, I'm 65, I get Medicare. At some point, I found out, hey, they take some money out of Social Security every month for that. This year, it's $185, and I figure, well, that's it. Done. No. It can be. You can have just plain Medicare, but you'll have co-payments, and not everything's covered. So there's a whole nother layer of options that you can do. that I'm not going to go into here. There's lots of YouTube videos on it, but here's the number one piece of advice. Find probably through a friend or family member that has a really good experience with a licensed health insurance broker. They can explain what the options are, how much they cost, and they can apply on your behalf. Now, be careful there because they get commissions, and if you don't have a trustworthy insurance agent, they may push you to things that pay them more than others. That's exactly what you do not want. Also, there's some comparative tools. There's Medicare supplement plans, and they're that do cost money out of pocket. There's drug plans that are separate that cost money, or you hear advertisements on TV for Advantage plans that combine those first two in often a zero monthly payment, but there are trade-offs to that. That's why you really need a knowledgeable insurance agent to explain the trade-offs to you. So this can get really complicated, but what isn't complicated is do your diligence to find good reasons to trust a licensed medical insurance agent that can help you make those decisions with Medicare. But before they can help you, you do have to apply for the base Medicare, which everybody has to do when they're 65. There are exceptions to that, but again, if you're still employed, you can defer that, but that's too complicated for today's video. So Social Security, we've got an income, you've got income coming in through Social Security, you have some form of health care to varying degrees with Medicare, and what of Social Security isn't enough. There's those of us that maybe have pensions from companies that are in addition to that. And that's a big help. If you're not so lucky there, you may have to continue to do some work. Now, the question is, if I'm taking early retirement from Social Security, does it mean I can't work? No, that doesn't mean you can work. You can work up to a certain amount. And I think it's about $22,000 this year. I'll put that in the description as well. It changes every year. It goes up a little every year. And I'll put in the description what it is for 2025. If you have a job, you can earn up to that amount with no penalties, where you're not going to lose any Social Security benefits. What they don't want is people to start collecting Social Security at 62 and keep working full time and collect both. They don't want that. The only time you can do that is when you reach full retirement age. And for pretty much everybody now, that's 67 years old instead of 62. So for 5 years between 62 and 67, you can earn extra money, but it's up to that annual earnings cap. And they will find out. They have access to the IRS records. And if they find out that you earned in excess of that, and by the way, those pensions I mentioned about don't count against that. Investment income, 401k income, none of that counts towards that earnings limit. It's wage earnings, work that you do. So what work can you do? Well, it varies. If you've ever heard of the beet harvest, I'll put information in the description on the beet harvest. People can earn a few $1,000s in just about 4 to 6 weeks by working on the beet harvest. There are various areas of the country where they need help to do the beet harvest, and they do that. And they usually have places for RVs to park, which is included in the package. And for years, people worked at Amazon warehouses, and they have a little RV park attached to it. I don't know whether that's still happening with Amazon or not. I'm hearing rumors, so you'd have to look into that yourself. But there's seasonal jobs almost everywhere. And Facebook is a great place to find out about full-time RV, seasonal, part-time activities. One of the most common ones is being a camp host somewhere. Now, I was a camp host for the Army Corps of Engineers for my first summer when I retired, and that's a federal Army Corps of Engineers. There's and also state national parks are federal. And they're also state parks that have. And one thing they all have in common, they don't pay you anything, but they give you a free site most of the time with full hookups. And that, if you're wondering, that income is not taxed, because the IRS rules say that if you're given a place to live and you're required to live there, then the value of that is not taxable. Right? If it's optional, then it potentially can be taxable. So I worked for the whole summer. I had full hookup sites, and I worked about 25 hours a week, checking in campers and cleaning restrooms and fire pits and things. And I had a great experience doing that. Now, in the private sector, there are private campgrounds pay camp hosts, and they give you a site and also may pay you on top of that. So again, Facebook is an excellent place for that. You want to find reviews of people that have worked in these places, because some of these places are great to work in and others are miserable. But I do know people that are full-time on the road, and all they do is move around doing camp hosting jobs. So they're out of pocket cost for what normally in life is rent or mortgage is essentially zero. So all they're paying for is the gasoline it takes to get from one assignment to the other. And if you're doing large blocks of time in these places, you're not spending a lot of money on gas annually. So you can absolutely do that. I'll put a couple of Facebook groups that I'd like down in the description. So the description is big with a lot of resources, and it's probably going to take more time for me to do the description of the resources than it does to take this video. Now, there are online jobs that you can have. You need a good internet connection wherever you go if you're going to take some kind of online job. And there's Creativity RV. She has I'll put her channel, but she also has an Amazon Kindle book that she updates on an annual basis on things that you can do to earn money while you're on the road, in particular online. And I have bought the book and I've checked it out, and I find it to be very reputable and a really good resource. So her name is Robin, and I will put links to her page, her YouTube page, and the Kindle book that I have. It's very inexpensive. And just beware, if you start Googling for money I can make online, there are lots of scams out there. Things that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. But go to her book. She's not going to have any scams in that book. And like I said, she updates it regularly, at least annually, to keep it up to date and current. So that's today's video, and I hope you enjoy it. And again, I want to remind you, I know like Social Security and Medicare, it's a hotbed of political discourse and argument and fear. Please keep that out of the comments. There are plenty of other places to talk about politics. We're just talking about kind of the logistics and the basic facts as I understand them. And could Rob be wrong about anything he said? Absolutely, I could be wrong. And if I'm ever wrong, I hope to have the good sense to say I stand corrected. I was wrong. But please keep the politics out of the comments. I pretty much won't allow it. It's not a good place to do that. There are lots of other good places to do that, and they're pretty easy to find. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.